Hey everybody, welcome to Elden Dogs, your favorite podcast about Elden Ring and dangerous gods based on fire and succumbing to temptations. And my name is Brad, I'm one of your hosts. Today I'm also known as Sir Gideon Ofnir because I talk a very big game and I hardly leave my bedroom.
And I'm Tyler, also known as Alexander Iron Fist, because, I mean, how many puns can I make about killing people and eating them? The well is running pretty dry at this point.
And you admire the Donner Party.
Yes.
Yeah. We have a very special guest today, someone I've listened to for a long time, many different wonderful podcast topics and podcasts you've been on. Welcome, Kole Ross.
Hey, thank you very much for inviting me on. I'm Kole Ross, a.k.a. Mariel Pastor of Vows. Because don't tend to stay in one place. I'm a real weirdo who's excited to share specific facts, and no weapon forged of man shall prosper against me.
It's interesting that there's only one, giant talking turtle. There's no other turtles that really communicate anything.
I thought those were just dogs.
Oh, yes, dogs, of course. So Elden Dogs is our show that we discuss Elden Ring. We're Hair the Dogcast. But before we jump into our topic today, which is Mountaintop of the Giants, I wanted to just ask you, Kole, if you could explain a little bit of your history with Elden Ring and the Soulsborne at large.
Yeah, so I do a show that's very similar to this one called Bonfireside Chat. We've been doing it. We actually just passed 10 years now. It's myself and my co-host, Gary Butterfield. And we started out on Dark Souls, and we basically, I've been into Souls ever since Dark Souls itself. I didn't have a PS3, so I didn't do Demon Souls. And we've been covering the series in depth pretty much because we couldn't stop talking about it on our other podcasts that we do. It just kind of kept creeping in, and it's like, all right, this is getting kind of ridiculous. Let's turn this into something. Yeah. And so we went dormant for a little while after Dark Souls 3, just because it didn't seem like there was much on the horizon, but came back for Sekiro. And we're doing Elden Ring now. And boy, I really enjoy the video game Elden Ring. I don't know if you guys have played it. It is real good. And it's, something that I try and keep in mind. And what always comes up when somebody asks, like, hey, what's your, Elden Ring kind of experience, is just having had all of this experience with the previous games in the Souls series and, Bloodborne and things like that. There was kind of a trajectory that they were going on where it was going to kind of be a little bit of a difficulty. It was going to be a difficulty fuck. That combined with, they're going open world. I hope they don't borrow too much from like really bad open world AAA games, like, erode the identity here. Turns out they made this kind of a more humane version of the Souls kind of combat and difficulty, more humane really than they've ever been, giving you so many ways around it. And the open world, somehow they made it so it doesn't lack that identity. So like those big fears being allayed, it's more like just really, looking at this from the game from a lore perspective. I love the lore. I love the way it tells stories. And, especially this season diving into it, getting really comfortable with the idea of ambiguity in the storytelling. I don't know if you all have run into kind of places where it's like, yeah, I'm like 70% of the way there, and it probably could be this. Like I'm pretty sure I've got a good guess, but I just have to be comfortable saying like, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know if, Ronnie ordered the hit on the Night of Black Knives. I can see cases for either. And so that's made this really interesting to discuss.
And I'm sure there's a 10-page theory somewhere on Reddit how Bach the Seamster is secretly an Elden Lord or something too. It's just there's so much openness to interpret the lore, which it was hard for me to rectify that at first as well, because I'm someone who likes to read everything and organize things, put them in my boxes and understand, all right, Radon is related this way to Gravity Lords and a Town of Sorcery. But it's something that I've only recently really started to accept is the mystery, and maybe there aren't answers. I'm sure that there's a lot of things that are just put in there purposefully open so you can create your own stories, which is something I do really appreciate about Elden Ring specifically. And I haven't played through the Dark Souls games. And Tyler, Elden Ring is your first experience as well, right?
Yeah, it's my first Souls game. And I will agree, the ambiguity and just being okay not knowing everything 100% was the toughest pill to swallow in getting into this game. Because I come from playing like God of War 2018, The Last of Us games are some of my favorite games. And those are very like right down Main Street.
It's like a rail story.
Yes, you are essentially playing a blockbuster movie, and there's really no missing pieces.
Yeah.
But being able, once you realize that the world is designed for you to create your own story the way that you do, I really appreciated it a lot more. But that took me like probably a good 35, 40 hours of gameplay before I was like, oh, I got to read everything. I pick up a fucking rock, I got to read about it.
It's environmental storytelling that is just very brilliant. That's something that I realized with Bloodborne, that item placement can be integral in understanding the grand story of certain enemies and things, scenarios. But so Bloodborne is where I fell in love, and eldritch horror, cosmic horror, was when I just started really diving into that. And then Elden Ring comes along, and George R. Martin is my favorite author of fiction. So to have him meet up with Miyazaki to make this big open world game, and you did mention about how they kind of made it more humane, and that was a debate I was having with myself. I'm like, is it too easy not having to do an extremely long run to a boss? And I don't think I would want to go back to the days of Bloodborne running 2 minutes to fight the Orphan of Kos for 5 seconds and going through all that again. But it was interesting when this game came out, because people that weren't playing any Souls games at all were all talking about it, and it felt old school playground talk. Everyone excited about the same game again, which was very exciting.
We were working at Eagle Park when it came out,
yeah,
and everybody at Eagle Park was talking about it. Even people I didn't even know played video games, which is probably smart on their end that they made it so you didn't have to do those long runs, because not everybody's a masochist, and they aren't going to enjoy that style of gameplay. I feel like I'll probably jump back into Bloodborne and play through Dark Souls, but I'm a little nervous because if it's going to be that much more difficult, I worry about how I'm going to like it.
Yeah, I'm excited to revisit them as well.
It's just different rhythm. Like, it's a longer iteration loop, but I think but what's funny is Elden Ring with its short runs hastens the iteration loop, so you can get really good at the parts of the game where the difficulty is really meaningful, identifying enemy patterns and learning how to react, knowing when it's appropriate to dodge or when it's appropriate to try and parry. Like all of that is skills that you develop that are going to backport very well for you. It's just a different relationship with time.
I do like that we did have those stakes of America, so that
Yes.
I didn't have to.
Yeah.
I won't get into that. That's a long tangent, but yeah.
Yeah. Today, our topic we're discussing is the Mountaintop of the Giants, and my first time playing through this was very different than my most recent time playing through this.
Yeah.
Initially, this area scared and confused me a little bit. I was in the headspace of I'm probably underleveled, and I did a lot of running, but possibly. Controversially, I would say this is one of my favorite areas on playing through again. I really do enjoy the Mountaintops.
That's where I left off early on when I kind of fell off playing. I was stuck on the Mountaintops, and then I just recently took my digital copy of Elden Ring and I blew the dust off of it, and I jumped back in, and I got my shit handed to me by those wolf dog things that are up there. It is a very striking place to be in the game. That run up with the long, like, rocky bridge thing right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Feels so cinematic.
Yeah.
Like, you put a little low roar on that, and it feels like you're almost in Death Stranding. Yeah.
My initial reaction to the Mountaintop of the Giants, I Actually, I didn't really care for it. And that is just because I was more interested, I think, in finishing the game so we could begin talking about it. More so than kind of going through and seeing everything that's there. In hindsight and in coming back to it, I can really appreciate the stuff that is there now that I have, taken the time to go and see all of it and not feel like I am, chasing after a finish line that always feels like it's kind of being moved away, because Altus is so big and so dense and Lendel is like really climactic,
It really is.
Yeah. And it's like, oh man, how much more of this is left? Because I kind of know a little bit about what's going on, but I've got no idea what the shape of the story is. With the fullness of, knowing what this actually entails, it's easier to enjoy the Mountaintop of the Giants for what it is, which is almost like a place that, yes, has all this great, kind of stark scenery that has, those big giant corpses and stuff. You can kind of see the side of this awesome tragedy, but also is like a place where you're not seeing a lot of new stuff enemy wise, but you are seeing new and more complicated versions of things that you have encountered before in a more inclement environment and in mix-ups that you didn't see before. Right.
Yeah, one thing that I do love about it is it's a little sparse. There's not a ton of catacombs, a ton of caverns, and it seems like everything that is there feels very purposeful, and there is, if you want to go down the rabbit hole, a whole bunch of lore to explore, and almost everything that I did find in this I thought was additive and not just filler, which... bringing up, you mentioned the climax of Lendel, and on my most recent playthrough, I was sitting there and I think, is this as good as it got? Is this the peak of the game? Because Lendel is just stunning, and it feels like, you've been working towards it. And Mountaintop of the Giants I do love, but I don't know if it ever got as good as the first time you get to the Royal Capital.
No. But that's fine. Yeah. The Howling Tree, though, I was like very happy. That was something that almost felt like a good DLC coming in there. Yeah. Challenge dungeon.
So we left off at the Royal Capital. We had just defeated our fellow, and Melina has said, all right, we're teaming up. We're getting the band back together one more time.
Let's ride.
Let's burn this fucker down. She has found her purpose, and I never really know the shape of the lore when I start doing research for these episodes, like what I can see the episode kind of coming to center around. And Melina was someone I really wanted to talk about and understand when playing through this, partially because, like, right when you leave, you're going down one of those lifts to get to the Forbidden Lands, and you find a room which very much seems to be coded as Melina's room or a prison for Melina, which I found very fascinating because we don't know a whole lot about who she is specifically.
All we have is speculation, and that speculation can be tightly held by a lot of folks, but this is a place where that ambiguity is really going to come to the fore. I think that one of the reasons why she feels so not incomplete, because she does have an arc and it's good, but she feels so mysterious is because she comes to you out of nowhere and then like serves this very important function, but then disappears.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't, I mean, she'll take you to the round table hold, and that's an important thing, but she's just gone after the first, 7 hours of the game, maybe, popping up occasionally to give you some of the America echoes, to get those lore bits. But that's about it until right here.
Yeah, I went through several hours after I beat Margit the first time where I just did not see her, to the point where I started asking people if I had glitched out. Yeah. Like, I was that concerned. I think I talked to you.
Where'd you
go? I was like, has anybody seen her? Like, I just beat the cat. Has anybody seen her? Like, she's on the back of a milk carton.
Do a wellness check.
Yeah.
You have to wait at least 2 days.
I was like, what do I got to do? I was distraught.
And she's interesting. She mentions that she was like born in the Erd Tree or at the foot of the Erd Tree. She seems to be coded to possibly be Marika's daughter. And she also only really talks about one NPC, and she brings up Bach and Bach's need for like his mother, and there are a number of things that kind of hint at what she might be. But again, we're talking about the big mystery. She and Ronnie share a design, that like little tattoo, and their faces look very similar. Mm-hmm. But it is important to note that that isn't Ronnie's face. That is the Snow Witch's visage that Ronnie has taken as the doll. So it's just a can of worms, but I think Melina is also related to like possibly the Gloam-Eyed Queen, because at the end of like the Frenzied Flame ending, her other eye opens up. Mm-hmm. Essentially, she's a beautiful mystery, and she's there to help us. And she knows our friend Torrent, so anyone who's cool with Torrent, I guess, is good with me.
She was the one person I was totally cool with doing my yes man strategy for, where I just said yes to everything. I did not deny anybody.
He didn't know this was a bad strategy in a Soulsborne game.
Oh yeah,
I helped give this potion to her for sure. You want to tell Bach that I gave Bach a tier so that he could look good. I just gave everything to everybody. But she was the one person I was like, yo, she's ride or die. She was there since day one. She gave me a horse. I trust her. Probably shouldn't, but I trust her.
To bring George R. R. Martin back and talking about ice and fire, Ronnie is very much, because that's just something, that dichotomy George R. R. Martin loves in his stories. Ronnie is ice, Melina is associated with fire, and it's a mystery that's fun to think about. We'll never really know the answer, other than if you accept the Frenzied Flame ending, Melina will come and fuck you up.
Oh, yeah.
Which, yeah, I was very surprised in the Morgott fight when she showed up as a summon, because we hadn't seen her outside of the Grace before.
She can hold her own too.
Yeah. And that's what we find in her room, which it looked like she might have been a prisoner. We don't know. And there's someone outside the door, but we find her Blade of Calling there. And yeah, so that just has me thinking about Melina. Also, this is the last area we see Melina, unless the Frenzied Flame is our thing. But the Mountaintops of the Giants are the site of the Forge of the Giants, which has the flame that can burn the Erd Tree. And naturally, America and the Golden Order, the Greater Will, doesn't want anyone getting up there. So that's why it's kind of locked behind the Royal Capitol and kept up there. But we do have access to it now. And like you said, Cole, it's a bit of a hodgepodge. There's like kind of a lot of different enemies around there. But the first place we run into here is the Forbidden Lands. And it's just a spooky, foggy bridge with some vulgar militia. I do like to imagine the vulgar militia as always swearing when you're fighting them.
Yeah, it is pretty good. They're just constantly hawking loogies and stuff. Yeah.
Just really annoying, kicking my shins. But yeah, we get across there. We get to the grand lift of Rold. And yeah, the Mountaintops was the site of a major battle. Let's get back to the Forge for a second. And the Giants are coded as the mortal enemies of the Greater Will. How much animosity they actually had towards the Greater Will, I am unsure of. I think it might be like they had a really nice forge, and they were like, the Golden Order was threatened by them. So it was maybe like, we don't like you, you're our enemy now. Because the Giants seem to get on very well with astrologers, and they were neighbors. Can I borrow a cup of sugar? And that's a lot of sugar for a giant.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
so much can be answered, especially in a game where the geography is this big and, apparent. You can kind of see who shows up where. A lot can be answered by who invaded who,
Correct.
You don't see an awful lot of evidence of like giant incursion down off of the mountaintops, right?
Yeah.
Like there's, some like you see the big skull things down in Caelid that are most common up here. It's unclear how that's related to the Giants, but it's really the only thing that kind of relates, that shows there. This is going to sound really dumb, but I also kind of hold to it. I think the Golden Order and thus the forces of the Capitol and the Erd Tree just wanted the fire giants wiped out because they were worshiping a fire god, and a tree does not like having fire around.
Yeah.
That's what I think it is.
I think it's also one of those things where like the story has been history's been written by the victor. So if there was any sort of fighting or whatever went on here, whoever won wrote the story, and you just have to accept that.
Yeah.
And you can kind of draw your own conclusions from details you pick up. But I definitely feel like we got a little bit of that going on.
Yeah, we didn't see actually any giant houses or, any giant Applebee's. I'm not sure where they ate.
Definitely a little suspect.
It is lore in my brain. I don't care if it's not accurate. All of the big dogs and the birds up there at the Flame Peak, those are the chihuahuas and parrots of the giants. Those are the pets. That is lore in my head. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah. They do all their grocery shopping at the even more giant eagle.
Yeah, the giants, though, they worship the one-eyed fell god, which we learn a little bit more about. But yeah, I think you're right. The Golden Order felt threatened, and it's just like, oh, your god is different than ours. Also, we have a tree that we like. Keep your fire away from it. They go to war here, and Godfrey is the one who kind of leads the charge up there. We're going to get to the battlefield later. One of the first spots we run into, though, is the Zamor village, the Zamor ruins, and I think this is the only site of the Zamor we run into. We see them elsewhere, the people, but this was their village. They are long-lived warriors and mortal enemies of the fire giant since time immemorial. So these guys did not like the giants for sure. But maybe it's just ice and fire not getting along. Like you said as well, keep your fire away from our ice.
I think that they were neighbors, okay, yeah, we worship different things, but we're kind of right on top of each other.
We don't like how you mow your lawn.
Yeah, the mailbox color that you have isn't quite to the HOA's code specification, so I'm going to make your life hell. Yeah.
The Zamor are cool. You run into one of the ancient heroes down in the Weeping Peninsula, and I imagine he probably just was feeling a little battle hungry and is like, let's go. I'm ready to keep fucking going. We're going. I've never been to the Weeping Peninsula. And then he did something that got him locked up. He was a bad boy somewhere.
Yeah.
Outside of the Zamor ruins is someone that I was very excited to meet for the first time because I had seen this item called Shabriri's Woe. And essentially it says, this is the ultimate dickhead. This is the worst guy in the world. This is the worst guy you'll ever see. And I was like, oh, what's up? It's my homie Yura. And he says, my name is Shabriri. And I was very excited.
Like the grapes.
Yes.
Like the grapes, man.
Yeah.
That's what I said. I've been carrying around. Did you name the grapes? Are you named after the grapes?
Straight up, those are eyeballs.
Like, gross.
These grapes have gone bad.
Lots of protein, though.
Yeah. And they make me have these strange visions, too. But Shabriri, he's known as the most reviled man in all of history. His crime of slander made him the first host of the Flame of Frenzy after his eyes were gouged out. We'll see this. Pretty much anyone who has their eyes taken away in multiple factions eventually starts seeing some weird shit.
Yeah.
Which I imagine the more you look inward, since you can't look outward, you'll find things inside of you, blood gods and fire gods and all these things.
Well, that's based off something real too. Like if there's people who have gone blind, but they know what it's like to see who suffer from hallucinations.
Mm-hmm.
Because
it's like having a phantom
their brain
limb.
is, exactly. It's like having a phantom limb. Your brain still processes images, so it could be kind of freaky.
No.
Yeah.
And also someone who can't see and thus cannot observe the evidence of the material world around them, especially in a world like the Lands Between, like Elden Ring, where you've got all of these outer gods seeking a toehold. If somebody can step in, like the Frenzied Flame, or the Three Fingers or what have you, and kind of hijack your sight and start guiding you around, literally leading the blind, to kind of do their bidding, like we see with Hayata, right? Then all the more power to them. Yeah. Yeah,
Shabriri he's a good talker too. He knows what to say. He's like, you really like your maiden, right? You wouldn't ever set her on fire or nothing, right?
That's something I love about NPCs in Elden Ring. Like, a lot of them do it. Raya does it. Whiteface Vari does it as well. When he's like, hey, so what do you think of those 2 fingers? Kind of suspicious, right? And he's literally trying to screen you. It's like, okay, if you say yes, he's like, well, have I got some blood to tell you about? And
you're not a cop, right?
And if you say no, it was majestic, they were hairy and they wiggled, he says, I was just a test. You are a straight shooter and you are a good little church boy, aren't you?
Yeah.
A lot of these characters, that is the way they try to deceive you, is those trick questions where they just roll along if you know, and try to play it off if you know, toe the party line.
Screening to make sure you're legit.
Yes.
And he is really trying to convince you to not set. I mean, he masks it in a nice wrapped present. You can save your maiden. Don't do that. Go down underneath the Capitol. You're going to hate it. The sewers are not fun. But you should go down there. You might find some other hairy wigglers down there. Yeah.
You know, that's why he's the most reviled person in history. He directs people to a place where the omens have been given permission to do wrestling moves on the children. Yeah. You're going to fight just a shitload of omens. It's going to suck. I'm going to love it.
Vince McMahon is just running matches down there. Tag team match, 2 omen versus a child. My first time seeing Shabriri, I said, no, Yura was a good dude, and I'm not going to deal with this. So I took him down pretty quick. But you don't need to keep him alive to go on. Plus, the way his spirit can just take over people, it seems like he'll be fine anyways.
Yeah.
But
I never met I'm so bad with names. The guy, he takes his body. Shabriri is disguised as
Yura.
Yeah, I never met Yura in my first playthrough, so I thought that was just him. Yeah. So when he's like, yo, you don't want to burn your maiden, right? I was like, this is a new guy.
I have no reason not to trust him.
I have no reason not to trust you. And I'm a yes man. So I'm like, yeah, I don't want to burn her.
Take your clothes off. Get hugged by these 3 fingers. And you're like, well, yes, I will do this.
I suppose.
It's interesting, too, Melina. This is one of the first times she just comes to the fire and she says, you better not fucking dare. Yeah. I want to be burned. It's her new purpose is to do this because she wasn't sure what her purpose was before. But after seeing the Erd Tree, she says, this is what I want to do. I have made this my choice. And it makes you question things, and it is a nice way. I like that the endings are never pushed in your face, but they're all there kind of in the background if you want to go down these different paths.
Yeah. I like that beat, and I really enjoy, because that is resonant with a lot of stuff that happens in especially like early in Dark Souls. But FromSoft has told the story a few times about the violence of denying somebody their purpose for your own reason. So like it pops up quite a bit in Dark Souls 2, where they use hollowing, the process of dying over and over again and losing your soul. They relate that and like the memory loss to like dementia. Like you eventually, people just become different people entirely. But even in Dark Souls 1, you have people like Sigmire, who, if you try to keep him alive through all of this misadventure that he, in this Don Quixote like fashion, keeps going into, he suffers a worse end than if he just got ripped apart by the chaos beings down in Lost Izalith, right?
Yeah.
They've occasionally come back to it, and I'm really happy that they worked it into kind of the main story and an ending, and an ending choice here with Melina.
Yeah, how many different endings are there through like the various Dark Souls games? Is it, because I thought 6 endings was a pretty awesome big amount for like different story beats and how you want the world to function. Is Dark Souls pretty open too in that sense?
Not in particular. So I think Dark Souls 1 has two endings. Dark Souls 2, I think I forget if there were 2 in the main one, but there are at least 2 with the DLC adding one of them Dark Souls 3, I believe that there are 3, maybe 4. This is definitely the most outcomes that you have, because effectively your ending, is the ending that you get is primarily chosen unless you just do the default one. It's you kind of scoping out these different ideologies or concepts of how this world ought to work and making your choice, throwing in your lot with them. The expanded offering of endings lining up with that, but also lining up with how open the game is in general, makes good sense and is satisfying.
So Shabriri, we're open to talking to him, but we're going to just wait a little bit.
We're not going to make any rash decisions.
We'll hear him out. Around the corner is the Giants' Mountaintop Catacombs. Pretty straightforward, but outside of there is our first taste of running into some fire monks and a fire prelate. They have been tasked with guarding and safekeeping the flame at the top of Flame Peak. They also have looked into the fire long enough to where they're like, it looks kind of cool. I kind of like it.
It's real neat because a thing that Elden Ring does is getting these factions within factions. So they're the ones who are orthodox. They want to maintain the fear of the flame, right? Our way of worshiping this is to, make sure that people understand this is bad news in all of its forms. And then you get the black flame ones that you end up fighting like down in the Kaled, Divine Tower, what it is. Mm-hmm. They're the ones who are like, no, actually, we spent all this time worshiping this stuff. It's really effective. We can use it to our own ends. And they go rogue, but still use those powers. I love the factions within factions.
Yeah, just like in the real world, if there's good agents and bad agents in any scenario, and there's splinter cells. But the prelates are beautiful design. The big prelates with some of the designs in these games are just fantastic. And the helmet, which is just like a giant bowl, a cauldron on top of their head. And yeah, it was fun the first time running into them. But then we come up on this just breathtaking long bridge. It is just a long ride. And I wasn't sure if maybe the Giants had potentially like carved it out to make that, like to funnel the forces through there to make it like easy pickings, because there's only one way up and you are going over this long bridge. They should have had more of the archers at the other end.
Yeah.
Just have 10 of those archers. It would have been almost impossible to get over. But on the long bridge, you do find the sorcery, the Briars of Punishment. And this is an aberrant sorcery discovered by exiled criminals. I believe the Flame Monks, they were exiled as well. I don't know if it was because they were criminals, but they were like speaking slander against the greater will. But this is one of the thorn sorceries you're going to see. And it there's only 2 of these, so it is interesting to note. And I do believe that is what all of the Giants up on the Flame Peak are stricken with. It seems like the Briars are what comes up, not the Deathblight, because that would have been after this. But that is what you read on that, Kole? Is like the Briars is what is going through all the corpses?
I really don't have a read, honestly. I don't know. Just because I don't know, unless they would have been sending exile criminals to fight the war for them, to actually use this. I associate the Briars mostly with like lone apostates rather than an organized force. I don't know how to square that with whatever is happening with the with whatever is happening with the Giants up here.
Yeah. But we get across this long bridge, and you can run into Millicent here if you haven't found the medallion to the Halig Tree, which you haven't yet because you need the other half, which we'll run into in a little bit. But around the corner, we find the Shack of the Lofty, and this is where we find the cooler, older brother of House Hoslow, who is all talk and trousers. What a great dig on Dialos. He has a little brother who was all talk, no trousers. I'm like, oh no. What a nice little dig.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, this is also why I hold off on beating Praetor Rykard for a little while, because you You could do it all earlier, but if you want to get all of the quests done for the Volcano Manor, you do have to come up here first. So I hold off until I come up here. But Juno Hoslow's hanging out up here. If you go up above where he is, we run into the Stargazer's ruins.
Love this.
And yeah, what happens up here, Cole?
Yeah, so you remember that jellyfish that you got from Roderica?
Yep.
You know, early summon, probably used either that or the three wolves, right? And, you know, if you read the description, it says like, oh, longs for its home, right? And it's one of these indications that, okay, some of these are specific beings, they're characters. What would a spirit jellyfish have to do with, okay, it's a jellyfish, right? Again, all these different versions of the afterlife. That's somebody's soul. Through some process, they turned into that instead of returning it to the Erd tree. That's why they gather around all the catacombs and stuff. So all the way back there, you probably got that within the first 5 hours of the game that jellyfish stopped using it. But if you get up here, is there a message? Or is it just you talk to this you talk to this spirit and then you get an option to hand it over, or not to hand it over, but to summon it, to summon the jellyfish?
The jellyfish up there, you get the dialogue from Aurelia. It says, "Sister, where did you go?"
Yeah.
And hopefully you're paying attention and thinking and not just attacking. Jellyfish are generally never angry with you. You have to instigate it unless you're into the angry gang of jellyfish in Liurnia.
Yeah.
Those are the first ones that came to mind.
Yeah.
They were pissed off because the people on that caravan definitely provoked them. Well, no, they were trying to get they were carrying the great shield, right? They had that great shield with the jellyfish. They wanted to get their friend back.
Yeah. Put your friend down. To me, it's also coded a little bit as, at least with Aurelia and her sister, it's children. And there's even a grave next to them that says their names. So part of me just has this horrifying feeling that all jellyfish are spirits of children that died. Sorry for all of the jellyfish I have killed. I just this is my formal apology. I didn't know you were possibly children.
Should have probably made that more clear to me.
Why didn't you say something?
but if you summon the jellyfish, then there's this wonderful reunion. It's very great. Cute. Like you finally get a chance to bring her back, and they get to see the stars.
Yeah, I like that. And you get the most important but not important item in the game, the gesture, fancy spin. Which,
well, now I'm a little bummed because I had PTSD from every other single thing I've encountered in this world trying to kill me, that I believe I saw that jellyfish and was like, yeah, they've all been cool, but that's probably the one dickhead one. And then I went the other way.
You summon the other jellyfish, they turn into two monster giant jellyfish.
Yeah. I was like, and then I'm fighting a super jellyfish. Like, I'm not about this right now.
No. That's too bad.
Yeah. If you do this, you also get a talisman, the Primal Glintstone Blade, which is stained with blood. It says the old sorcerers would slice open their hearts with these blades to imbue a primal glintstone with their soul, and thus they did die. Too many people in this world are ready to kill themselves for what they believe in, I think.
Yeah,
very devoted.
But
you guys are weak. I'm going to cut my head off to prove a point to you.
It is as angry as you can be to do this. Yeah, they're just, but they're doing it for knowledge, though. It's less about what they believe. They just really want to get in touch with that. Although, yeah, no, that is its own religion. The glintstone is an outer force that is corrupting and coming in. No, what you said holds.
Yeah. I understand the pursuit of knowledge, but if I'm not around to understand it, I prefer my head not to turn into glintstone, essentially. But maybe. We don't know. Let's just make a giant graven mass of our heads together and roll around, and we'll see if we figure some stuff out.
Why not?
Yeah.
What could it hurt?
We have to try. We run into Brother Corhin up here as well. He's starting to realize Goldmask might be learning things that are contradictory to what he wants him to understand.
Never meet your heroes, kids.
Yeah. Maybe Goldmask isn't my idol anymore.
Spend all that time calling him brilliant. You're going to dedicate your life. I need to interpret what he says. The second he disagrees with you, you're just going to throw him under the bus. Ridiculous.
He woke up one morning, he's like, he is in his underwear wearing a plate on his face.
Yeah.
He's starting to have some doubts, though. You can, at this point, give him a tonic of forgetfulness that you were given by Lady Tanith. You can either end up giving this to Zariah, or you can give it to Corin here. To me, though, you need to understand that sometimes things don't go the way you want. I'm sorry, you don't get my potion.
You got to learn this life lesson.
You got to learn this life lesson.
Stop following guys wearing plates on their face.
Yeah.
Go get a job.
Get a job. What do you do?
Job.
Your parents would be disappointed.
I love Corin's arc with this because I think that outside of Ronnie's ending, Gold Masks is probably the best one in terms of outcomes for everybody, which is Gold Mask in teaching this fundamentalism, our idea of fundamentalism, because we live in this world where it's done so much bad, is, we're going back to an older, stricter way that is much more punishing. It's that, that old time religion, right?
Yeah.
In this world, a Golden Order fundamentalist is more akin to in Catholicism, it'd be like what the Jesuits were like in the 16th century, something like that.
We'd have to adapt.
Yeah, kind of still are, which is like they're more of a like an intellectual order, right?
Yeah.
And this is just he's going back to these first principles before all the structure and specifically power got into it. And Corin is real freaked out because he's existed in this hierarchy for so long, he can't see outside of it. Right.
Yeah.
And so, regardless of how it ends, he needs to understand and bear witness to the fact that this thing that he loves is a corrupted version of something that could possibly be way better.
Yeah. I do like that ending as well. I think Corin, the Gold Mask ending, I should say, because it's Gold Masks that kind of ultimately says we should rethink things a little bit, and that's okay. But you have two different ways you can go here. If you head south, you'll find a minor Erd tree, which there isn't too notable other than this avatar can split into two. Great.
We love that.
Real original, guys.
Big fans of that.
It is, though, preferred to going north of there, which you quickly entered. You entered the wrong neighborhood, motherfucker. These giant skeletons you might have seen before. They are on the west side of Altus. There's in that one ruins area, but there are so many of them here. You try and run past, and these guys are everywhere. And would you read this as like the giant skeletons possibly being summoned back?
I have no idea. It doesn't.
I could see that.
Yeah, I would need to look at their designs more closely to see. The giant physiology is really, really weird. So yeah,
I want to know what jawbones they have in their stomach.
Yes, is that all muscle? Is there like a cartilage thing there going on? Like what actually is worn away? I don't have a record on this. I just know that they're a pain to fight.
Yeah, and not only that, you also, one of my favorite enemies that I ran into here are the angry snails that are in skulls. They're not passive. They just start rolling at you and trying to fuck you up. Normally the snails are very much just kind of slithering away and not doing much, but these snails are angry snails.
The death snails are so good. Go ahead.
I love them.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is also a tibia mariner hiding around here. And
I love fighting those things.
It's nice having enemies that aren't just incredibly difficult, but just a cool design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's enough variation on the Tibia Mariner encounters too, to where it doesn't feel rote really at any point. I can't remember what this one specific thing is, but they all have something different about them.
And you learn a little bit more about what they're up to. They drop the Helfin Steeple. It's a great sword patterned after the black steeple of the Helfin, which is a pronoun you don't hear a lot about, which you might get that a lot in this.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, 2 hours later, I have discovered I know less than before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool weapon, though. And then also around here, if this wasn't a bad enough neighborhood yet, there's a Deathrite bird who is just, oh, no, fuck you too, man. Not the worst Deathrite bird by a long shot, but not a great one either.
Still killed me a bunch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Is this the one that you fight alongside the man? What is the worst Deathrite bird?
I would say, for me, the consecrated snowfield.
Yeah,
the one
there we go.
At the way north of that. That one drops an obscene number of runes, too. I was recently doing a cleanup on my first main character, getting prepared for a New Game Plus, which I haven't dove into yet, because I just love to have a whole map and everything explored, all my items available to look at. But I was doing a cleanup, and that was one thing that I had missed. Also, the duo Knights Cavalry and Consecrated Snowfield. And the Albinaric armor from those archers is incredibly tough to get, those drops, and they are mean. So that was not fun. But the Deathrite bird will drop the Death Ritual Spear, which was used by priests of old who were permitted to come among the Death Birds. Clearly that's not us, because they don't let me come within 20 feet of them.
No.
Yeah, no.
We don't like the way you look.
You're in the wrong part of town,
You
partner.
don't even know me.
These I like the death birds a lot. They say I like anything that is evidence of different orders worshiping the destined death in a different way than Fia does. You know, like of all of the outer deities, it's probably the most persistent and varied in its approach. You know, like the Scarlet Rot, whatever it is definitely probably the most successful in terms of getting out and kind of establishing its own little beachheads. But the Destined Death is very creative.
I wish there was more times when you could be coded as a non-enemy to these different, creatures in the lands between. Let's say that I'm all decked out in Deathrite stuff, and the birds just see me and they're like, okay, you can walk through here. Or you're wearing, Godric soldier armor, and they let you kind of sneak around a little bit more unless you draw attention to yourself. That would be something I would appreciate, which would be cool.
You're describing a Hitman game set in the world of Elden Ring, and I'm down.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I've heard you. I have never played a Hitman game, but I know you and Gary have been mentioning it in passing in a few episodes lately, and it's making me want to do a dive.
They're really good. They're exquisite. They're real treasures.
Okay. Yes, there is a wonderful castle up here, depending on if you like punishment. I do love Castle Sol, though, just from a lore perspective. Take off any metal armor when you're coming up to it. There is a lightning storm happening, but the Wandering Mausoleum is outside, and for good reason. Castle Sol is kind of coded as a place that worships these mausoleums, and they have a mission to help Mikola bring Godwyn, get him his soul back. This poor festering corpse down at the foot of the Erd Tree. They just want to help him. This was a pretty cruel castle, though, as well. Did you go there, Tyler?
I think that's where I'm currently at.
Okay. Yeah. The Banished Knights are very fun.
This is really tough. This is probably the non-legacy dungeon, mini dungeon kind of thing that I end up having the most trouble with. Even more so than the town and the consecrated snowfield with the invisible
Ordina.
I think this is really made to be, well, because such an important thing is hidden behind it, but also this is a test, okay, are you going to get, if you can't handle this, the consecrated snowfield is going to be a real problem for you.
Yeah, I never want to go to the consecrated snowfield.
No.
Castle Sol is interesting, though. It seems like they were an army for somebody else before. They have wound up working for Mikola. I was kind of getting the impression they might have been working for Godwyn, since they want to help him come back. And because they were, we run into Commander Niall, and it says that he offered this prosthesis in exchange for the lives of defeated knights held prisoners. So he was fighting for somebody else, and then here's my leg. Can I have my soldiers? I don't know if that's a fair trade, but it's more of like this is sad. Give him some people, I guess.
If he was dealing with Godric, it would have been...
Godric, Godric's like,
limb.
ooh, nice legs, buddy.
We can
I'll
work
take
with
two.
this.
We got something we can do here. But then they became an army of no nation, and Mikola, another character we know not enough about, and the Eternal Child, which is terrifying because they seem smart enough to be more dangerous than almost anyone else.
If Mikola was still in play, if Moog didn't do the heinous thing that he did, then a lot would be very, very different just by virtue of how, let's say, I don't know, he seems very interested in helping. And if the Halig tree ended up being able to serve its actual purpose, being able to uproot and supplant the Erd tree with a new order, and all of the things that he invented, and him working on things that would actually help sever the lands between from the influence of the outer gods, and anything that you end up walking around in, such as, this force here that is just really interested in restoration. It's real tragic to see them just kind of like held in stasis and sidelined like this.
He is kind of like Doogie Howser.
Yep.
Or if you are younger, Smart Guy, starring Taj Mowry. He is...
I don't know if you're making that up, is the thing.
No, it was a fantastically existing show. But yeah, he seems like he just wants to get everyone together. Like Radagon's discus of light, he like helps make this thing for Radagon. He wants to heal Godwyn, and he just seems concerned with trying to bring people together. And he's that one person at the family get together who's like, can everyone just stop talking politics for a little bit? Home Alone is on, and I just want to hang out today. And they still get him train sets despite the fact that he's 45 because he's a child. And yeah, if I have a feeling it's when Millennia went south that Mogwin's like, this is my opportunity. But Millennia and Mikola were just hanging out at the Halig tree, like, everyone is welcome. We're going to have a safe haven for you, Albanorics. They just seemed like a real welcoming spot. I've never felt more like a bad guy than going into the Halig tree and just walk in with like two guns, pulling a Neo in the Matrix.
It's supposed to be a refuge, right?
Yeah, it's a sad thing. I always feel guilty, but
But you still do it.
I still do it. I mean, I'm a yes man when it comes to collecting things.
I'd say I'm sorry, but that means I wouldn't do it again. So
I will rationalize in my head a reason why everyone must die for me to get their armor at some point. But yeah, in Castle Sol, you find the Church of the Eclipse. There's a spirit there saying, "Oh, great sun, frigid son of Sol, surrender yourself to the eclipse and grant life to the soulless bones." So there is some sort of a belief here that an eclipse might be able to bring a soul back to Godwyn, is my reading on this. Wondering...
Oh, no, continue. Sorry.
No, please.
So it's not just Godwyn. This is something that we're talking about a lot recently on Bonfireside Chat, which is, the idea that, enough time has passed or the main family has been so established, but, like we have the demigods that we know about, the big names that we either help or fight. But there are headless demigods just in those wandering mausoleums. There are other demigods in play that just are not major enough or not powerful enough or close enough to the main family branch, but they are still given this place of honor, when they die, or at least are picked up by these mausoleum knights. There's something that is, distinct from them. So their main project here may be helping out Godwyn, but there is something about the furthest kind of twigs on the branches of this family tree that they seem to, recognize as being worthy of allegiance, right?
Our third cousins matter.
Yes.
Yes. Inside of this church, you find the Eclipse Shotel. It's one of the legendary armaments, which anytime I run into that, it makes me go, okay, take a moment. We should look at this. It's the story sword and treasure of Castle Sol that depicts an eclipse sun drained of color. And it's got a unique skill, the Death Flare. It sets the lusterless sun ablaze with the Prince of Death's flame, inflicting the death ailment upon foes. Not a weapon I've used, but it's interesting that it's associated with the Prince of Death, with Godwyn. And there's banished knights here that are mean. You can be 2 football fields away and shoot one arrow, and then they just like right behind you. If you take 1 second where you're not paying attention, and sadly, this is also the only place you can get the banished knight's armor altered. If you're out there being a stupid completionist like me, it's the only spot you can get the non-altered version of it, I should say. One of them, yeah, but they're pretty mean.
Yeah, those long aggro ranges and those long leashes are a real problem.
Yeah, but you also find with the Eclipse, the sigil that are on the wandering knights around these mausoleums. They're all wearing like Eclipse great shields or eclipsed sigils all over them. So it's definitely associated with them. Commander Niles up there, we mentioned his prosthesis. And I know some people like to say that Commander O'Neill down in Caelid would be his son due to naming conventions, that O'Neill and O'Neill, like Niall would be the son. O'Neill would be the son of Niall. Maybe.
Is that how that works?
Like Seamus O'Flanagan would be Flanagan's son or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh.
To have the most stereotypical name for an Irish person possible.
Yeah. Somebody wrote in about that, and I was pretty well convinced of it. Pretty much in a like, why not kind of way.
Yeah, no
more
reason
than
not
anything.
to, and it doesn't really have a serious effect either way. It's
Right.
coded enough to where I'm comfortable to accept that.
Yeah.
The battle is not fun. He summons, you can spirit bell the moment you walk in, and then he just pulls out a spirit bell. He's like, okay. Summon Charizard.
Oh, assistance, please.
It's not fun if you do it too, man.
This is my
fair.
crutch.
Yeah.
It's a rough fight. It's very tough.
Yeah. And at the top, you find a ghost who says, Lord Mikola, forgive me. The sun has not been swallowed. Our prayers were lacking. Maybe the sun just moves by its own volition, too. But
All of this is frustrating because everybody knows there is no sun in the lands between.
correct.
And if anybody tries to tell you otherwise, they are just a fraud, I would say.
Yeah. So they're really just, their worshiping is missing the point in a big way.
Yes.
And the fact that there is no sun.
Yes, exactly.
But keep praying. Maybe it'll happen. You'll get the other half of the Holly Tree medallion here as well. If you head east, all the way northeast of here, you'll find the freezing lake. And what happens there?
There's a big ass dragon.
Yeah.
There's a big ass dragon. I was up there because Rivers of Blood is up there, correct?
You get Rivers of Blood up here, yes.
Yeah, so I went searching for that because I'm all about the katanas. That is my favorite weapon. I was like, I need that Rivers of Blood. So when I got to Mountaintop of the Giants, I went straight here. I was like, before I do anything, let me go get this.
Yeah.
And then, boy, did that suck.
I love how it gets foggy first on the lake.
Didn't like that.
There's
reduced visibility.
See,
I'm not a fan
I like
of.
punishment, and you got scared.
I
love horror movies, and you don't.
I love horror movies. I just don't like to live them.
Yeah.
I also was already scared because I was like, I didn't know where I was going, so I'm just kind of cruising around on Torrent, and then things are popping out of the snow at me, and I'm like, all right, I know this is gonna get bad because that's scary.
Yeah.
And then it started getting foggy, and I'm like, that sucks. This blows. And then I was dead so fast.
Borealis is it's like every other dragon. He's a little more difficult though. And, this is the ice dragon.
At this point, I've killed a lot of dragons in this game, and I found him to be incredibly challenging for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because, is he got a resistance towards magic?
Well, at least they... Go ahead.
I would need to look at the stat block. I was going to give a different answer than the resistance question, which is the frostbite status effect is way more insidious.
For sure.
It just then you would reckon it would, specifically because it makes you more susceptible to damage and hijacks your heals. Makes them it takes away your one way to bounce back from mistakes, or not takes it away, makes it less potent.
You don't get a ton of frostbite. It's not a status effect you run into as much, which is why I think it's a little more confusing.
Well, you get it. I mean, this was like the first time I had encountered it since I fought that Dragonkin soldier.
Yeah,
because he's got the frost attack because he can't do lightning.
It's the frost lightning because he's underground.
Yeah.
Yeah. Frost Lightning, the sequel to Frost Nixon.
Sounds more exciting.
He really stepped up, going from a disgraced former president to, a force of nature. Yeah.
Nixon started worshiping dragons. I will have my revenge.
Yeah. And the Heroes of Zamor
I am not a dragon. Sorry.
But the Heroes of Zamor will do frost stuff, but their combos are a much bigger worry, and it's easy enough to kind of avoid that, as opposed to here, where Borealis starts off with this really intimidating, probably as intimidating as intimidating of an opening as a field boss dragon fight gets, and that's including like Lanciax. Up on Altus, like it's everything here's kind of to put you off balance, all of which is to say, I wouldn't feel bad about finding this tough.
Yeah. It took me a long time. I mean, but once you finally kill him, he drops a butt ton of runes, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I think I remember getting up.
Your butt is full of runes after this. It's interesting too. This is where we start getting a lot of Land of Reeds lore is coming through. There is an invisible scarab running around holding the ability to kill yourself. For some reason, the scarab, this dung beetle, has got seppuku on him. And this is how you can plunge the blade into your stomach to stain it with blood to increase attack power and improves ability to inflict blood loss. This is probably out here because right next door is the Spirit Caller Cave. I did want to mention, though, could you imagine on the frozen lake if you had Mario mechanics and you were slipping on the ice when you were fighting? I was thinking about that the other day, and ice mechanics would be horrible in this game.
Oh my God, yeah.
Wouldn't care for it one bit.
And thank God there's no swimming underwater levels either. Yeah, but I love the Spirit Caller Cave too. It's a real classic, straightforward cave, but anytime that there is love for the snails, I get excited. And it's it becomes the mission to find the snails, kill the snails, while you're also getting attacked. But they can summon uniquely the Inaba, which they are pupils of what's his name? The guy up there at the top of the mountain. Okina. Yes, the Inaba. Yep, the Inaba, Okina is like their master, and Okina left. They don't know that he's been hanging out with a whole bunch of bloody dudes. And they're going to look for him, and something happened. I don't know if they got destroyed by Borealis as well, or Ice Dragon, but these snails can summon samurai warriors. So yes. Snail's bad.
Snail's very bad.
And they also have some mean wolves in there, but I love this boss fight, too. My only critique of this, because you fight two Godskin nobles here in this cave. My only critique is that they should have had the snail hidden somewhere so you can go attack the snail during the battle. Because he doesn't emerge until you beat the two Godskins, which to me, no, this shouldn't be how it works. It's like the witches of Henwick in Bloodborne. They should just be somewhere hidden on the playing field somewhere, but...
That would make it too easy then.
Yeah.
I can't stand fighting these Godskin nobles. I don't care for them one bit.
I've said it. I think I've said it a couple times on this podcast. That is my least favorite enemy to fight in the entire game.
Oh, man.
And I don't think it's close.
I don't know what mine is.
It's that fucking roll attack.
I'm still so traumatized by the big dogs my first time in Caelid that they're not hard anymore, but in my heart, I see them when I close my eyes.
The fear is still there.
Yeah. My least favorite would be the ulcerated tree spirits. Just because they really, really need to settle down. But the Godskin nobles, at least the Godskin nobles don't have an actual instant death attack like the ulcerated tree spirits do. They just have an effective one with their big rolling attack where they kind of turn into Sonic but rotated 90 degrees.
Yeah.
And the turn radius being that big, I mean, they are a giant sphere, but they should not be able to make the turns that they make. I should be able to juke them out. Physics is fucked.
Their turning radius is identical to when Kirby swallows one of those wheel enemies and turns into a car tire himself.
Yeah.
It's unfair.
If anything would make me feel better, it's that they're subjugated by a snail. So, sorry, your lives are now forfeit. I am Master Snail. You do find some cool stuff. You find the Black Flame Ritual Incantation, which talks about the Glomide Queen here, and the Godskin Swaddling Cloth Talisman.
Fucked up.
The Glomide Queen cradles newborn apostles swaddled in this cloth. Soon they will grow to become the death of the gods. That's a family get together I would skip. They sound like
Is that the talisman that gives you HP back on success,
successive attacks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used that for a minute, and I don't think there was a reward. Oh, well, it definitely gives you HP back, but I don't feel like the reward was worth it.
It changes too with light weapon attacks. It takes 7 hits, something like that, and like heavy weapons take only like 3 hits, and you get healed 3% of your health plus 30. It's a weird mechanic.
That's probably why it didn't work too well for me, because I only used melee when I got up close because I was primarily a magic user. So that explains that.
We're going to go to church quick, though. America's First Church is up here. I don't think that they're holding Sunday sermons often because no one goes to church anymore in these worlds, really. But the First Church of America here, if you've been following the numbers, you've probably been going in reverse from 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah. This tracks the battles that happened when the Golden Order was first, fuck you, fire giants, and then heading south all the way to the Weeping Peninsula. And yeah, the Spoken Echoes are a mechanic that I wasn't familiar with for a long time, which is unfortunate. You get to your rhythm where you go to a site of grace and you don't think to look through, the 15 or 20 options. It winds up being a lot. And sometimes Melina will be able to summon the words of Marika, which is really cool to hear because it's the only time you hear Marika's direct dialogue, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Is this, you may be able to tell me because I can't recall. Is this something that they fixed in the patch where they add a little icon in the grace menu where it's like, okay, there's a little dot next to the flask upgrade if you have the stuff. So they did add the dot next to like, hey, there's dialogue here.
I think so.
That sounds right. Yeah. Those just subtle additions they do to patching stuff in, and also just NPC markers. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. My map,
Smart.
I put way too many.
And I'm not upset and complaining that they're making this game too easy. I just want to know where the fuck is Bach right now. I'm missing my little homie. He's probably feeling bad. I'm just going to go tell him he still looks really good.
I know where mine's at.
Yeah, but you know where yours is.
I know where my little homie's at.
Plastic surgery gone wrong.
Well, that's
starring Bach.
My boy. Look what they did to my boy.
Look how they massacred my boy.
Yeah. So right by the church, though, we find the Lord Contender's Everjail, and we learn a lot about Vyke. Vyke is, I think, one of the background characters, the NPCs, that winds up having a huge story when you piece it together.
Tragic, too.
tragic. He is, the cover of the game. Vyke is on all of the main art.
That's Vyke?
Yes.
Oh, all right.
He was the tarnished that was closest to becoming Elden Lord, locked away after being seduced by the flame of frenzy. Part of after he's locked up in this jail, we fought him once before down in Liurnia, outside of the church down there. That was the festering fingerprint version of him.
Oh yeah, I remember that now.
But Shabriri, Shabriri really got this guy. He pulled an Impractical Jokers. He's like, they're just like, tell him to go down there, tell him to burn someone. And he fell for it. And I think Vyke, I don't know if he was in love with his maiden or what was going on, but he did go down and he did get hugged by the three fingers. I think, though, that possibly because he wasn't naked when he got embraced by the three hairy wigglers, as we call them. Because we're told by Hyetta down there that we need to take all of our armor off, and his festering fingerprint armor has the marks of the fingers. So it looks like he walked in and didn't follow the rules. This is a nudist party. You are not allowed to wear pants.
It's like rule number 1.
It's rule number 1 when you go to these swinging parties.
Yeah. Well, no, 2. You put your keys in the bowl, and then you take off your pants.
Yeah.
That's definitely rule number 2.
Leave your keys by the site of grace. But Vyke was also, he's associated with Lanciax. It says Vyke the Dragon Spear, Lanciac loved him the most. But we find that bloody maiden down in Liurnia, and it seems like it probably was his maiden. For some reason, she's dead. And it's one of those things, too, where there is lore built into items and, certain descriptions of, I don't even know where they get all of them when you go on, Fextra Life. There are descriptions there for like locations, but there's also just context clues. And there are things that when you're playing, it just feels right. And you can kind of piece it together. I got the feeling playing this time that he locked himself up. I think that he got all the way up there. He at least had, it seems like he must have at least had 2 of these runes as well, the great runes, because Gideon says only one time before has someone else had 2 great runes. But I think that maybe he was so worried about having the frenzied flame that he locked himself up rather than risk going further and perpetuating the horror that caused his maiden to potentially die anyways, or made him become somewhat of a bad guy. Vyke's interesting.
Yeah, it's I can see a moment of clarity. I think for me, something that also supports that is who else could have stopped him? Who could have grabbed him and put him in there? Like nobody has it together enough. Like if he, plausibly took down 2 great, 2 of the great demigods and got the shards, then yeah, he could have done all of them. Like it's very difficult to think of anybody other than him making this decision.
Yeah, it's interesting that they made Vyke the poster child for the game. They put him right on the front, and yeah. The more I always like reading about Vyke or running into Vyke lore. And next time, take your clothes off before going in to the room, Vyke, if you really want to go there. But
commit to the baptism, right?
Yeah. If you have any doubts, don't take that communion. I don't know. Otherwise, just do it anyways. I'm hungry. I'll take some bread. There is a heretical rise is what it's called here. Another one of these mages towers. And you better believe this is still the exact same tower you've seen everywhere else.
Yep.
There was one really good builder who was associated with mages. And he's like, I got the perfect plan. You're going to love these stairs here. We're going to put an elevator, this little lift right at the top. Trust me. But this one was one that I did look up online how to get to, because it's just straight up an invisible path from the other side of the map, from another like raised area. And what you find up here is the sorcery, the founding reign of stars. This is thought to be the founding glintstone sorcery. From everything that has been that I've read, this seems like where the first astrologer was. This is where glintstone sorcery was founded, and they were up there looking at the moon and having revelations. Maybe smoking some weed. I don't know.
Yeah, that seems to be the case, at least based on the item description. Those are always written from a point of view, but I don't see a reason to contradict it.
And it seems like a good spot to study the stars. You're as close as you can be to the night sky, and the Sword of Night and Flame, the crutch that started my first playthrough. It says the astrologers of the Mountaintops considered the giants their friends. So the astrologers up here were, like I said, probably inviting each other over for movie night. They might have been playing games with the giants. Who knows?
Maybe some fondue.
They had some fondue parties.
Yeah.
And any worshippers of the Frenzied Flame were not invited. This was a close-on affair. But it also says the Sword of Night and Flame was a storied sword and treasure of Caria Manor. So this makes me think that the Carian royal family might have been descended from the ancient astrologers that were up here. Maybe that's why they were considered royalty. But this sword is related with the Mountaintops of the giants up here as well. Mm-hmm. How did you solve that puzzle for the first time, Kole? The invisible path.
I think that I probably looked it up.
Yeah.
It's been a very long time since From has done that trick. They relied on it for like one particular dungeon in Dark Souls 1, the Crystal Caves, and they used it once in Dark Souls 3 to get to one of the Covenant leaders. Yeah, and I can't remember when I went there. Like the hint before the hint in Dark Souls 1 was it was snowing and you could see the snow kind of stop when it hit the invisible invisible walkway. I don't know if that's happening here. I think it's just something you have to intuit. I think that the rises in general are really neat. From the perspective of they're trying to do different things in this engine than previously they had done, but also I do not think that they are entirely successful in every instance. They repeat a lot of the ideas, and a lot of them are just not intuitive. So it is like it's A for idea and attempt, but like, let's say C+ for execution, So I didn't feel too bad about looking it up at this point.
Yeah. One of my only critiques of the open world experience of this game would be reused assets, which on the scale of things is a small sin. I would rather have, most of the time, more dungeons to explore, more catacombs, more caverns. At some point, though, when you just see the same thing happen over and over again, it's you notice it, and it's still okay. But if I were to complain about anything, it'd probably be like, all right, these mages they have one building layout.
Yeah.
It's probably like a Sears catalog house kind of thing.
Ooh, yes. I'm going to take the only model available. That would be great for me. We run into the Guardian's garrison just ahead here, and this is where the Flame Monks like to hang around. This is where they've been garrisoned to protect the Forge of the Giants from anyone else getting up there. And I like this little area, this little mini dungeon quite a bit. I like the lore here. Have you been through this, Tyler?
I don't think so.
Okay. Because my first time, I just ran through and I said, I don't care what you guys are doing. I'm just going past you.
That's my current play style in the Mountaintops of Giants. I think I'm in Castle Sol, and I'm just doing a lot of running.
Yeah.
I mean, everything in this part of the game to me is just super scary. More so than other places. Like I felt like I was a little too big for my britches when I got up here.
Yeah. And the Giants' britches are huge.
Yes.
This is a hard one to run past. Like, this is one of the kind of pieces of architecture or emplacements that is actually serving its purpose to me, because it's not just the castle, but they've got that kind of run of the like pickets outside, and those fire monks. Like, you can try and like dash past them and stuff, but like they've got ranged attacks. They're gonna hit you a few times as you're trying to work your way through there.
I like not the main monk enemies, but just like the devotees or the acolytes. That I have a burning stick. I'm gonna get. It's on fire. I'll get you.
Come over here so I can burn you.
I love that as a weapon. Just lighting a stick on fire.
It's my best idea. It's not a very good idea, but I'm going to try. I like your spirit.
A for effort. If you go into the garrison and get to the top, you run into Chief Guardian Arganthy. This boss has they're kind of in charge of the garrison, and they are protecting a couple things. They drop the one-eyed shield, which, as far as shields that are also weapons, this one's pretty fun. It has a little like cannon that shoots fireballs out of it.
That sounds awesome.
It's pretty cool. And it mentions in the description, once worshipped by the giants, this evil deity is believed to have been slain by Queen Marika. And that's where if you haven't figured it out, this evil deity, the fell flame god, is still around. They've been hiding it. They know this secret, the fire monks, and they're not letting anyone know about it. Also, the Giants Prayer Book is up here with some pretty dope incantations if you want to do some fire giant attacks. But there is then a long chain, a giant chain built across to get you to the Flame Peak. And this is very much where the battle happened with the Giants. There are just corpses everywhere. And their chihuahuas and parrots are still around, and they're still angry. There's still a few trolls that are fighting as well, but if you head southeast of there, you run into the giant conquering hero's grave. And, like I said before, I really like most of the little areas to explore in this. I thought this was a fun hero's grave for the most part. Those the Light of Rosas puzzles are not always going to be my favorite, but
no.
Overall, though, on the scale of heroes' graves, I like this one more than most. No chariots, so I'll take it.
I've come around on the chariots since they patched them.
Were they just like way stronger before the patch?
Oh, it was instant death. Yeah.
Okay.
Especially if you went down there early. I mean, it's the first place that if you took the Stone Sword key as your starting gift, you probably used it, and it was entirely useless to you, because even if you got to the bottom, what are you going to do? Beat the putrid, or not putrid? Beat the ulcerated tree spirit? No,
you're not.
Yeah, no. They still do a ton of damage, but it is not assured death.
And you can find the cranial vessel candle stand here. Now that's a bunch of syllables there. This candle stand was used in the worship of Birak, another pronoun, the most hallowed monk prelate of the Giant's Flame, concerned over the lazy arrogance in which the monks were treating the flame. He cut his head off. I'm going to show them. You guys are lazy. You don't even cut your own head off.
What are the mechanics of that? Like, without a guillotine, and I don't know if guillotines exist in this world. Like, yeah. And just it's hard to, because it doesn't say, he ordered his head chopped off. He somehow figured out how to do this.
And I like to imagine he invited everyone over. He's like, you guys are going to love this. And then he just calls them out. He severed his own head, intending it to be used as a candle stand.
I don't know. If I need a candle stand, I can get it for $3 at Big Lots. It's fine.
Yeah,
actually,
he could have just went to Etsy. He would have been fine.
Something would have worked out, Birak.
Yeah.
Oh, Birak.
I'm going to cut my head off.
I think he might have been too into this shit, guys. It's more of a hobby.
I'm definitely not that devoted.
Yeah, but this is that candle stand is where you can like slam it in the ground and like shoot fire out of the top. So if you want to do a build like the prelates, you sure can. And you can find the giant seal in here as well. Sacred seal depicting the one-eyed giant, the god of the fire giants, adorned with braids of red hair. And the boss is the ancient hero of Zamor. I imagine this Zamor knight was just really cool in the battle.
Yeah.
But as we go up, we run to the Church of Repose, and we run into Okina, and he just is mad. No one ever talks to you. They just like, all right, fuck you, and they just come at you with a katana. I would be the guy like, whoa, 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 whoa. Can we talk?
Just, I don't know, man. I brought coffee. Hey, 6-pack. Let's, yeah, no, he wants your blood.
And I want that katana.
And
if someone comes at me with a katana, I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna take that.
I trade you my blood for your katana. Okina is a mean person. Wooden mask. Okina's mask depicts an old man baring his teeth. The more he sharpened his mind, the more the absurdities of the world came into stark relief. It's like your 20s.
Very formative years for him.
He was just like, I don't know if I trust anything anymore. I think things are fucked.
He just got too cynical.
He got really cynical about it.
And then became a nihilist.
He didn't cut his head off, so he's got that going for him. But maybe he should have.
I don't know if cutting your head off is something you do out of cynicism.
No. He wants to burn it down is what he wants to do. He's not... It's interesting he's associated with Mogwin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Moog, I should say, the Mogwin dynasty. I don't know why Moog ran into him, and the first time he felt Okina's sword and madness, he had a proposal to offer Okina the life of a demon whose thirst would never go unsated. I mean, what do you promise? Like, if you worship me, you can kill as much as you want? Like, he could have done that anyways.
Yeah. I don't know. Or we're not going to make your life harder. You don't have to fight us. Just go kill the innocent if you want to.
The Rivers of Blood does have like hardened blood, so maybe he just like gave his weapon like a big boon to it or something. But we want the weapon.
It's disappointing because Okina's one of the guys who helps you with the fight against Radon.
Oh yeah.
So you think, okay, like pretty much everybody there's, solid, Patches included and especially.
He came. I mean,
yeah.
At least
he was there
showed
for a
up.
moment.
Yeah.
He did do an Irish goodbye, but he was there.
Yeah, my friends call it the B-Rad skedaddle.
Yeah. It's a good skill. It is a very good skill to practice. Yeah.
I think Patches went to the bathroom. I don't know.
His coat's gone. It's off of the bed where we put all the coats. Yeah, no, he's long gone. But he probably went there just as an emissary of Moog, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, you just we gotta, it's in Moog's interest to have Radon taken off the plate regardless. So, gonna send him there. So not everybody who killed Radon necessarily needed it for or meant to do it for like altruistic or good reasons.
The enemy of my enemy.
Yeah. So, but it was still a little irritating. Like, come on, man, you helped.
Remember that time we hung out and it was pretty cool? No, it's not cool to him.
No, not at all.
There is this area, besides a ton of corpses, there's not a lot to explore here. Something that is horrifying, though, is up north you can find a colossal fingercreeper.
Yep.
There's only two in the game, and it's huge. And I took up my overly powered person and struggled for a while. There's just fingercreepers up here. I always associate them with Rykard. Regardless, they're bad, so kill them.
Yeah.
Or just don't even go up there.
I love the finger creepers. When the first trailer came out, and there was very little story detail, there was very little to hook on to aside from the imagery. Everybody was super excited about the walking jars. Just like people were calling them jar mimics. Like, oh yeah, that's going to be the thing. And I was like, hey, walking jar, cool. hand spider. Like, in my head, I was building up like, oh, that's got to be like a super cool boss. And it's like, God, it's never really a boss fight. It's just kind of an ambient thing. And you get to see whole life cycles and ecologies of them, different sizes. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if they'd make a good pet, but I would fuck with it. Yeah, spiders are scary enough, let alone ones with that are made out of fingers.
Yeah. And then when they sit in the ground,
oh yeah,
and then you walk up, you're like, "What's going on here?" And then they Venus flytrap you.
I noticed today I was in finger creeper territory walking around, and I have such a one-track mind. Shiny thing, walk to it, and just be careful. Okay, I'm just saying, keep your head on your shoulders here. But this is where we run into our big boss of the area, the fire giant. So one thing that's odd that I didn't know about this battle, because I'd largely missed all of the NPC summons my first playthrough. You can summon Alexander to help in this fight, but if you do, you can't use Torrent, which is a trade-off that I'm not willing to take.
With that first phase, not having Torrent to get around his attacks that are designed to keep you away from him, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, you have to have very good precision dodging. I was reading in the strategy guide earlier, and it says if you do summon Alexander, if the fire giant gets far enough away, Alexander just loses him. I'm like, of all the enemies you can't lose,
he's fucking huge.
He's there.
Not only is he giant, he's on fucking fire.
Just rip his fucking leg off, Alexander. Get over here.
That is one of the more creative phase transitions I've seen in one of these games is attacking his, because you have to be real like, yes, it's the only thing you can really reach, but like to understand which leg to attack to do the most damage. It like, oh yeah, like he's got a splint there. I wonder if that's, oh yeah, it's totally a weak spot. Oh, what's he gonna do? Oh, now he can reach further because he ripped it off. He's really committed to this.
I like his weapon too, just like the giant pot lid that he has. He's making it work for him. This is the last fire giant. Merica. Forgive me for always getting the names wrong in this monstrosity of Mikola, Melina, Merica, Melina, Mogwin, Margit, Morgott, and everything in between.
Yeah.
But
no jury would convict you. Yeah.
I'm surprised I get it right ever. We'll take it though. Merica cursed this last fire giant because she realized she could never put the fire out in the forge, that you're cursed to stay here and guard it. I don't know if it was the fire giant was just able to hide the fact that the fell god still lived within him, but it's apparently still in his chest. When I walk into a fight and I notice a giant face on an enemy's torso, I'm worried. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's concerning.
Yeah. That's not something I've seen before. When Rykard shows his face on a snake belly, I said, this is not where I want to be. This is bad.
No, that's not where faces ought to go.
Sideways now.
Faces generally don't exist there. But
So does it explicitly say that Merica couldn't put the fire out, or was it that there was it wouldn't be wise to?
I believe it says that it was unable to be extinguished.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Often in this game, there are people who keep around very dangerous things in case they need to use its power to turn on the people who are on their side, See Godric keeping the Black Flame stuff under Stormveil, right? So I was unsure if this was Merica thinking, if you ascribe to the idea that Merica broke the Elden Ring because she grew disillusioned with the Golden Order and the Greater Will, then there would be nothing more valuable to her than to have the this flame around in order to help bring it down, right? So I was unsure of what the case was.
And the 100% valid theory. The item descriptions are definitely an unreliable narrator in some senses. So it is maybe she did. She's like, all right, you fire monks, just make sure no one fucks around up here. And I'm going to keep my ace in my back pocket because it's accept the mystery and enjoy it. Think about it because answers will never come.
Yes.
Yes. But did you have any problems with the fire giant your first time fighting him, Kole?
Oh, yeah. It's really hard. I was initially annoyed. Once I beat him, I kind of started appreciating. I just think it's one of those cases where, man, you spend so much time learning the first phase. And as you are trying to learn the second phase of a fight, going through the first phase it just kind of becomes an annoyance, because I was hit and I used that's one less flask charge that I can use, in the second part. That friction I don't really appreciate. See also, at the end when you have to fight Radagon before you can get to the Elden Beast, right?
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. I just don't like doing
tough
the same
fight. There's one after it.
It's like
I always assume there's going to be a tougher fight.
What's that?
I said I just always assume there's going to be a tougher fight.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
if you never think it'll be a nice, easy thing, you're never surprised.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, well, that was tough. There's going to be something way harder right around the corner, probably, especially at this point where you feel like the game is really starting to wrap up.
Despite this being your first game, you have fully learned the Soul style of game then. You have made it.
Yeah. I expected it to be tough, but it engages in a particular kind of difficulty. See also, Melina, right? The two-phase kind of thing that ends up happening with a lot of these enemies. I don't like I succeeded at the first part, and then I have to succeed at the first part and then the second part, but that entails a lot of repetition. I don't know, for just the way things are doled out and the way that things are paced ends up making a big difference for me. That may be like a lack of patience or what have you, but multi-phase stuff does end up tiring me out a little bit, even though I appreciate the ultimate effect.
At least I don't have to run up all of Castle Canehurst to fight Martyr Ligarius.
Right.
Yeah, at least I'm outside of the battlefield with Millennium.
The stress of using those flask charges, though, in phase 1 on any of these battles is always like at the front of my mind every time, especially once you get good at the first phase and you should get through it relatively unscathed, and then you fuck up once and you're like, son of a bitch, that's going to come back to bite me. I just lost 30 minutes.
The giant rips his leg off, raises it to the sky. His eye opens up. You do take him down, though. How much of the giant do we think Alexander eats?
How much time has he got?
Because, his jar doesn't grow too much, but we've seen this motherfucker just eat things.
How much time does he got? Because if he's got an unlimited amount of time, I'm telling you, I'm putting that bad boy down.
I wish Alexander would have been in the Rykard boss fight. Imagine if Alexander was there and somehow became the new, evil snake god. Alexander getting too much power would be a fun thing.
Poor guy.
Yeah. His journey, though, has brought him all the way up here. He's been along for the ride, and the fire giant does ultimately fall. We get the remembrance. You can get the giant's red braid, which mentions Radagon. All giants have red hair, and Radagon as well has red hair, and he hates it. He doesn't like being a ginger because it's associated with giants, and perhaps that was a curse of their kind. I don't like it that it seems like they want to identify him with the giants, and to me, Radagon doesn't have any other giant things associated with it. I don't know if he just personally doesn't like his red hair, but
I mean, also given what we know about Radagon and America, it's kind of like, okay, you would have been alive and around. It's not like you were descended from these things. Yeah.
George R. R. Martin is writing this. He said, "You thought Cersei and Jaime were gross. Hold my beer."
That's if you don't ascribe to the idea that Radagon and Marika were separate beings who merged in some way at a certain point.
Oh goodness, that is a can of worms right there.
You see a bunch of stuff. I've got nothing to disprove it, but
yeah.
I'm more in favor of the duality kind of thing, mostly because it's like a cool gender thing. But
yeah. We get up to the forge, and this is where we do say goodbye to Melina, as long as we haven't been hugging wiggly, hairy things, hairy wigglers. But Melina will say she has long observed the lands between. The world is in dire need of repair and death, indiscriminate. Let's fucking do some sinning. So we burn the Erd tree, and she says farewell. And surely we won't be transported to a horrible location.
Surely it's not going to be like a real confusing place. Not just conceptually, but just really, confusing to get around.
It's like, all right, not only did you like maybe understand what was going on, but now you don't, no matter what. You are in a flying, storm-laden dragon capital place run by beastmen who look like Toka and Razor from the Turtles 2 movies. Yeah. I loved everything up to the forge. I also love that right when you come out of the opening area, when you the first step outside by Whiteface Far, you can see the forge way off in the distance. And it's cool finally getting all the way up there. I really was excited. I also knew, though, that this was kind of a point of no return. And this is one of those points where I took a break and just went online and said, what do I need to do beforehand? Should I be doing like this right away?
Hope you were too attached to Lanedell.
Hopefully you got all of your missable items in Lanedell, because shit's about to change down there.
Yeah. And when you said you can see the forge way off in the distance, I hope that's something that games keep doing, because with Red Dead Redemption 2, I turned the little mini map off. I just had the compass.
Yeah.
And then being able to look out and see something in the world and then navigate your way there just by like, okay, I'm heading towards it.
Yeah.
Rather than having these like paths you're supposed to follow and letting you explore your own path that way just based off sight like you would do in the real world is such a cool concept. And not enough games take advantage of it. Like Skyrim was probably the first one I played that was like, oh, you see that thing out there? You can actually go to it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like a theme that's really been kept up with.
Something that this game does really well too is you'll be very far away from somewhere. You can look over and they even have tiny little enemies walking around over there. And I love that the care that it takes, because I look over, I'm like, I should see something. And you're like, yep, there it is. There's a little beast man walking around up there. And it's great. It's the draw distance and just being able to see so far. It's brilliant. I do. I love this section of the game, especially on a repeat playthrough. It's a very intimidating area your first time there, though. You feel outclassed and outmatched, even though a lot of it is familiar stuff. It's just mean. The snails are angry.
What is the world coming to?
When not even a snail can be chill.
Yeah. The wrong neighborhood for sure. Do either of you have any other thoughts you'd like to mention about the Mountaintops?
It definitely sucks that it was the spot in the game where, for whatever reason, I decided to stop playing for a couple days.
Yeah,
because the atrophy in knowing the controls and being comfortable in the game, this is a very demanding part of the game, and I might have been able to sneak through the plateau or anything before this with taking a little break, but I feel like there was a major jump in skill and difficulty at this point, and I also suffer from this horrible thing where if a game is really, really, really good, I don't want it to end.
Yeah.
And when I know I'm getting close to the end, sometimes I'm like, I'm not going to play that right now. I want to keep the story going.
You can play it for 200 hours after you finish, man. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I dusted it back off and jumped up there. But with my my new and improved character who's in the Volcano Manor right now.
Okay.
I think I'm going to do it. I think I got what it takes now.
Yeah, I also have discovered if my sorcerer is way more effective at everything than my sword guy. Yeah. Keeping distance is a good thing.
Yep. I'm a big fan of it.
How about you, Kole? Any final thoughts?
I think this still remains like a weird area in terms of the overall pacing of the game. I think Farum Azula is maybe a step too far in terms of, Endgame going on maybe a little bit too long. But everything that we said about this being, a nice mechanical culmination of things, I guess the Halley Tree and Consecrated Snowfield would be like the challenge fuck area or whatever. But this being a very cannily put together kind of recombination of a bunch of elements that we've seen before. While again, it's hard to get through in an audio medium while feeling very alienating and having this incredibly stark imagery, having the giant dead giants. Yeah, sorry. The chains, the big, the big bridges. This is a scale of hostile, desolation that you just don't see kind of lower down in the map here. And it is a welcome change of scenery.
Yeah, excellent. I want to thank you so much for joining us today, Kole. You and Gary, Watch Out for Fireballs, was probably the first podcast I really listened to back in the day. So, longtime listener, love all your stuff. They just had a Hades episode. Get on their Patreon, Tyler, so you can listen to it.
Oh, hell yeah, Hades for sure.
Yeah. And so I'm super happy to get to have you come on our show and talk with us. We really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. I'm always down to talk about Elden Ring.
the number of people I've like, hey, would you be interested? Like, I will always talk about Elden Ring.
Yes.
And if our listeners wanted to check out some of your stuff, your content, where would they find that, Kole?
All of our shows can be found at duckfeed.tv. That's the URL. You can also do searches in whatever podcast directory you would like to. We are entirely listener supported. So the Bonfireside Chat, that show is on our Patreon, but there are several seasons of that are available for everybody if you would like to hear them. And we're also putting out a little bit more content from the Elden Ring season for everybody. Go to duckfeed.tv and find me on Twitter at Kole Ross. That's KOLEROSS.
Excellent. And if you want to find more content from us, we're Hair of the Dogcast. We are on Twitter at HotDogcast, and we're on Facebook and Instagram. We'll respond to anywhere, though, especially if it's about Elden Ring. You can't keep us away. But if you want access to our bonus podcast where we talk about movies and TV, access to episodes early, check out patreon.com/Hair of the Dogcast. Before we burn this Erd tree, though, we have a few more demigods we're going to go look for, and we'll be heading to the Consecrated Snowfield on the next episode. And next week on the Dogcast, we're discussing the history of football video games. So I'm very excited to not have a lot to contribute, but I'm excited to be there.
I am the resident football expert here. So This is my time to shine.
Yeah, this will be fun. Dylan doesn't even know the rules, probably.
It is going to be a chaotic episode. I cannot wait for it.
Special thanks to executive producers Brian Ward, Ryan Christianick, Kip, and Jordan Hoff. We appreciate all of you. This has been Elden Dogs. And just don't stare too long to the fire because you might get enticed
to cut your head off.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.